October 14th, 1943. 25,000 feet over the jagged, frozen landscape of Western Germany. The cockpit of the lead B-17 vibrates with a bone-shaking intensity, a rhythmic thrum of 4 Wright Cyclone engines struggling against the thin, frigid air. Inside, Staff Sergeant Leo Miller grips the handles of his dual-point .50 caliber waist guns, his breath frosting inside his oxygen mask. His heated suit is failing, and the -40-degree wind howling through the open gun port feels like needles against his skin. Then, he sees it. The little friends, the short-range P-47 Thunderbolts, are rocking their wings. Their fuel needles are hovering near empty. With a final, somber salute, they peel away, banking back toward the English Channel. They've reached the limit of their endurance. The escorts are turning back. The intercom crackles with a grim, hollow tone. Leo looks out across the formation. Dozens of B-17 flying fortresses, packed in a tight combat box, are now naked. Moments later, the horizon begins to speckle with black dots. The Luftwaffe has been waiting. Hundreds of Messerschmitt Bf-109s and Focke-Wulf 190s dive out of the sun like wolves onto a tethered herd. The air fills with the smell of cordite and spent brass. To Leo's left, a B-17 named Southern Belle takes a direct hit to the wing root. It doesn't glide. It disintegrates in a bloom of orange flame and debris. No parachutes emerge. For the next 3 hours, the bombers are alone in a gauntlet of steel and fire. By the time the bloody 100th and the other groups limp back to base, 60 bombers are gone. 600 men. Yet the message is clear. The daylight bombing campaign is dying. Without a guardian angel that can fly the distance, the 8th Air Force is bleeding to death. November 1943. An airfield in East Anglia, England. The solution to the carnage over Germany didn't look like a savior at first. It sat on the tarmac, sleek and low-slung, the North American P-51 Mustang. Originally designed for the British under a frantic 120-day deadline, the early A models were underwhelming at high altitudes. Their Allison engines gasped for air above 15,000 feet, leaving them relegated to low-level reconnaissance. But a British test pilot named Ronald Harker had a radical thought. What if we married this airframe to the Rolls-Royce Merlin? The result was the P-51B, and it was a revelation. Engineers in both the UK and the US worked feverishly to refine the design, eventually producing the Packard 516507, a license-built version of the Merlin engine. It wasn't just a mechanical upgrade, it was a soul transplant. Major James Howard, a veteran of the Flying Tigers, climbs into the cockpit of his Mustang. He feels the difference immediately. As he pushes the throttle forward, the 1,490 horsepower engine roars with a distinct metallic scream. Unlike the bulky P-47, the Mustang feels like a rapier. Precise, fast, and incredibly light on the controls. But the real magic isn't just the speed of 700 kilometers per hour. It's the 2 teardrop-shaped objects hanging under the wings, 75-gallon drop tanks. These external fuel cells are the key to the lock. By sipping fuel from these tanks first and dropping them when empty, the Mustang can now travel over 2,650 kilometers. For the first time in history, a fighter can fly from the English coast, duel with interceptors over the chimneys of Berlin, and still have enough fuel to make it home for tea. The big friends in the bombers are about to get a visit from their new protectors. On a cold morning in December, as the B-17S crossed the enemy coastline, the crews look up, bracing for the usual German onslaught. Instead, they see a new silhouette. Slim, with a square tail and a radiator scoop under the belly. "Who are those guys?" the tail gunner asks over the radio. "Those," the pilot responds, a hint of disbelief in his voice, "are our guardian angels." January 11th, 1944. 28,000 feet over Oschersleben, Germany. The sky is a chaotic canvas of white contrails and black flak bursts. Major James Howard finds himself separated from his group, the 354th Fighter Group, while diving to engage a swarm of German interceptors. As he levels out, he looks down and sees a sight that makes his blood run cold. A lone formation of B-17 from the 401st Bombardment Group is being mauled by nearly 30 German twin-engine fighters. There are no other Mustangs in sight. Howard is alone. In a P-47 or a Spitfire, the pilot might have checked his fuel gauge and considered the long flight home. But Howard is sitting behind the Merlin engine, and he knows his Mustang has the endurance to stay and fight. Without hesitation, he noses the P-15B down, screaming into the middle of the German formation. For the next 30 minutes, Howard performs a feat of aerial combat that will later be described by the bomber crews as one of the greatest displays of bravery in the war. He weaves between the heavy bombers, his 6.50 caliber Browning machine guns spitting lead. He knocks one Me-110 out of the sky, then circles back to drive another away from a crippled B-17. Inside the bombers, the gunners watch in awe. The Mustang is a silver blur, darting in and out of the formation like a sheepdog protecting its flock from a pack of wolves. Howard isn't just defending. He is dismantling the Luftwaffe's tactics. Every time a German pilot lines up for a killing shot on a bomber, the guardian angel appears in his rearview mirror. When Howard finally turns for home, his ammunition is gone and his fuel is low, but the bombers are still flying. This engagement marks a shift in the air war. The P-51 isn't just a defensive tool, it is an offensive weapon. General Jimmy Doolittle, commander of the 8th Air Force, issues a new aggressive order to his Mustang pilots. The Mustang's job is no longer just to sit on the bomber's wings. Your job is to hunt the Luftwaffe, find them, engage them, and destroy them before they even get near the big friends. The guardian angel has just been given teeth, and the hunters are about to become the hunted. March 6th, 1944. High over the outskirts of Berlin. The air is thick with a premonition of doom for the Third Reich. This is Big Week. For the first time, the 8th Air Force is launching a massive daylight raid on the German capital itself, a feat previously deemed suicidal. Captain Don Gentile, flying his P-51B named Shangri-La, scans the horizon. Below him, hundreds of B-17S and B-24S stretch out for miles, a silver river of aluminum reflecting the harsh morning sun. In the past, the Luftwaffe would have massed their forces to strike the moment the short-range escorts turned back. But today, the Mustangs don't leave. "Bogies, 10 o'clock high," Gentile's wingman shouts. A swarm of Focke-Wulf 190 Sturmböcke, heavily armored versions of the German fighter designed to ram or blast bombers at close range, dives through the clouds. But before they can level their cannons, Gentile and his squadron are already there. The Mustang's maneuverability is legendary. At 400 miles per hour, Gentile pulls a high G turn that would have snapped the wings off a lesser aircraft. He frames a Focke-Wulf in his K-14 computing gun sight. A short, 2-second burst from his 6.50 caliber Brownings rips through the enemy's engine cowling. The German plane erupts in a plume of black smoke and rolls into a terminal spin. The Luftwaffe is reeling. Their pilots are exhausted, and their fuel reserves are dwindling. But more importantly, their tactics are being rendered obsolete. The P-51 Mustang has changed the geometry of the sky. By roaming miles ahead of the bomber stream, the Mustangs are catching the German interceptors while they are still forming up, often catching them with their landing gear still retracting. By the end of the day, the Guardian Angels have claimed scores of victories. The myth of the Luftwaffe's invincibility over their own soil has been shattered. The Mustang isn't just protecting the bombers anymore. It is systematically erasing the German Air Force from the sky, one dogfight at a time. Back at the bases in England, ground crews begin painting tiny swastikas under the cockpits of the P-51s at a staggering rate. The tide hasn't just turned. It is a tsunami. June 1944, 30,000 feet over southern Europe. The roar of the Merlin engine is the only constant in the life of Lieutenant Lee Archer. He is flying a P-51C with a distinctive, glaring feature. A tail painted brilliant, blood red. He belongs to the 332nd Fighter Group, the Tuskegee Airmen. While the war rages in the north, the Red Tails are tasked with escorting the 15th Air Force bombers from bases in Italy into the heavily defended oil fields of Ploiești and the industrial centers of Germany. For these pilots, the P-51 is more than a weapon. It is an instrument of proof. Facing prejudice at home, they know that every bomber lost under their watch is a mark against them. Red Tail leader, we've got bandits coming in fast at 6 o'clock. Archer glances back, and a group of Me-109s is diving on a crippled B-24 Liberator that has fallen behind the formation. The bomber's No. 3 engine is feathered, trailing a ribbon of white smoke. It is easy prey. In a display of the Mustang's incredible low-speed handling and high-altitude stability, Archer and his wingmen don't just intercept, they form a physical screen. They stay glued to the bomber, weaving in a thatch weave pattern that creates a wall of lead for any German pilot brave enough to close in. This is the essence of the Guardian Angel ethos. The Mustang pilots of the 332nd develop a reputation among the bomber crews. They never leave the big friends to chase personal glory or kills in the distance. To the men in the B-24s, seeing those red-painted tails through the plexiglass windows is the only reason they believe they'll see another sunrise. By the time the war reaches its final year, the Mustang has evolved again. The P-51D arrives, featuring the iconic bubble canopy that gives the pilot a 360-degree view of the battlefield, eliminating the deadly blind spots of earlier models. It is the ultimate expression of the piston engine fighter. The Luftwaffe is now desperate. They begin to deploy the Me-262, the world's first operational jet fighter. It is faster than the Mustang by nearly 150 kilometers per hour. Yet, even against the dawn of the jet age, the P-51 holds its ground. Mustang pilots learn to bounce the jets while they are landing or use their superior turning radius to force the faster jets into dogfights they cannot win. The Guardian Angel is refusing to be eclipsed. April 1945. Low over the scorched airfields of Bavaria. The air war has changed. The massive, high-altitude dogfights that once defined the European sky have largely vanished. Not because the enemy has surrendered, but because the Luftwaffe has ceased to exist as a functional force. The Guardian Angels have finished their primary mission. The bombers now roam the skies over the Reich almost at will. Captain Clarence "Bud" Anderson, flying his legendary P-51D Old Crow, dips his wing and looks down. The Mustang has been repurposed. Underneath its wings Instead of just drop tanks, it now carries 500-pound bombs and high-velocity rockets. The escort has become a ground attacker. The Mustang screams across the deck at treetop level, its Packard Merlin engine howling. At these altitudes, so the pilot's greatest enemy isn't a Messerschmitt, but the deadly flak from mobile 20mm anti-aircraft guns. Yet, the Mustang's versatility shines. It strafes locomotives, fuel depots, and the remnants of German armored columns, tightening the noose around the crumbling Nazi war machine. As the smoke of Berlin rises in the distance, the P-51 stands as the undisputed king of the skies. In just a few years, it has destroyed 4,950 enemy aircraft in the air, more than any other Allied fighter in Europe. But as the war ends, a new sound begins to whistle through the clouds, the high-pitched whine of the jet engine. The Gloucester Meteor and the P-80 Shooting Star are the future. They move with a speed the Mustang can never match. The era of the piston engine, the vibrating cockpit, and the roar of the Merlin is drawing to a close. Yet, the Mustang's story doesn't end in a scrapyard. While other propeller planes are retired, the P-51 stays. It will go on to serve in the Korean War, proving its worth once again as a rugged ground attack aircraft, proving that some legends refuse to fade. To the veterans who flew the B-17 and B-24, the men who survived the terrifying Bloody 100th missions, the Mustang was never just a machine of war. It was the silver flash in the sun that meant they were going home. It was the guardian angel that descended from the clouds when hope was almost lost. The silhouette of the P-51 Mustang remains etched in history, not as a relic of a bygone age, but as the pinnacle of an era where courage was measured in the turn of a propeller and the steady hum of a Merlin engine.